Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into something absolutely critical for anyone in tech, the context of IT project management. I mean, this is the stuff that explains why some massive multi-million-dollar projects just soar, while others, well, they crash and burn.
So let's just jump right into the big elephant in the room question. With all the amazing technology and smart people we have, why on earth do so many IT projects still completely fail?
Well, the answer is kind of shocking. A huge study that looked at projects over an 8-year span found that only 1 in 8 IT projects, that's just 12.5%, actually succeed. And by succeed, I mean meeting their original goals for scope, time, and cost. Let that sink in. That means 7 out of every 8 projects are failing on at least one of those key measures. It's wild.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. When the researchers tried to figure out why, they didn't point the finger at bad code or servers going down. Nope. This quote from their study says it all. The problem usually isn't the tech itself, it's the environment the project is trying to survive in. It's the organizational culture.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to face this failure problem head-on. Then, we'll get into the solution, which has 3 key parts. We'll talk about thinking in systems, then navigating the messy world of organizations, and finally, we'll look at the modern playbook for how projects actually get run today.
All right, let's dive into part 1, the project failure problem. Before we can find a solution, we have to really acknowledge the high stakes and understand what's going on here. So, how do we start to fix this? Part 2 is all about a crucial mindset shift, thinking in systems. You've got to learn to use a wide-angle lens and see the big picture.
So, what even is systems thinking? It's basically a fancy way of saying you can't just focus on your one little piece of the puzzle. It's about seeing how everything is connected, how your project affects other departments, how it fits into the company's main goals, and how it's influenced by them. The key takeaway is that a project never, ever exists in a vacuum. And here's an awesome tool to help you do just that, the 3-sphere model. Look at how it forces you to balance these 3 critical areas. Sure, you've got the technology sphere asking things like, what tech do we need? But then there's the business sphere, which makes you ask, what's the financial impact? And the organization sphere forces you to think about, who's this going to affect? Who needs training? A truly great project manager lives right there in the middle, where all 3 of those circles overlap.
Let's move on to part 3, navigating the organization. This is where things get messy, because we're talking about the most complex and unpredictable part of any project, the people.
Now, this is a brilliant way to make sense of any company. You can look at it through 4 different frames or lenses. You've got the structural frame, that's the official org chart, the rules, the hierarchy. Then there's the human resources frame, which is all about people's needs and skills. The political frame, well, that's about power, influence, and hidden agendas. And finally, the symbolic frame, which is the company's culture, its stories, its heroes, its rituals. To really get it, you have to look through all 4.
And here's what that structural frame actually looks like in practice. You could be in a traditional functional setup where everyone reports up to a single department head. Or you might be in a pure project organization where the project manager is king, but most likely you're in a matrix where you're trying to answer to both a project boss and your regular department boss. You absolutely have to know which game you're playing to get anything done.
But you know, those charts only tell you half the story. The other half is the culture. It's the unwritten rules. It's how things really get done around here. And like the slide says, a lot of experts believe this is where projects truly live or die. You can have the best idea in the world, but if the culture is toxic or resistant to change, your project is probably doomed.
So what's the practical advice here? It's this. You have to become a master of managing relationships with all your stakeholders. But the most important relationship you'll have is with top management. Their support is not a nice-to-have. It is the fuel that your project runs on. They're the ones who give you the budget, sign off on your requests, and run political interference for you. If you can find a senior manager to be your project's champion, you've just dramatically increased your odds of success.
Okay, for our last section, let's tie all this together. How do these big ideas about systems and culture actually connect to the modern playbook for getting projects done in the real world?
First, we need to get a really important distinction straight. Your project has a life cycle. It's temporary. It has a clear beginning and a clear end. But often, your project is working on a product which has a much, much longer life cycle, from its birth all the way to its retirement. Think about the iPhone. The iPhone is the product. Over its lifetime, it has spawned thousands of individual projects. A project for a new camera, a project for a new chip, a project for a software update. See the difference?
This slide perfectly shows how our thinking about projects has evolved. On the left, you've got the old-school waterfall model. It's super rigid. You have to finish one step completely before you can even think about starting the next. But as software got more complicated, we needed something more flexible. That's where approaches like the spiral model on the right came in. They're iterative, meaning you build a little, test it, learn from it, and then build the next piece. It's a much smarter way to work when you don't know all the answers up front.
And the context today is shaped by these huge global trends. Your team might be spread across 3 different continents. You might be outsourcing key parts of the work. You're almost certainly working with virtual teams you rarely see in person. And the philosophy that's kind of risen to manage all this complexity, that's Agile.
Look, Agile is so much more than a buzzword. It's a completely different way of thinking. The core idea is that in our fast-moving world, creating a perfect 5-year plan is pointless because that plan will be wrong in 5 weeks. So Agile's big motto is to value responding to change over just blindly following a plan.
And you can see that philosophy baked right into the Agile Manifesto itself. Look at the values it promotes. It's always about people over process, getting something that works over writing a 300-page manual, working with your customer instead of fighting over a contract. It's a pragmatic, human-centered way to build things.
And Scrum is probably the most popular playbook for actually doing Agile. You can see the flow here. The team grabs a chunk of work from that product backlog on the left. Then they go into a focused 2 to 4 week cycle called a sprint to get it done. At the end, they deliver a small working piece of the final product. Then they review, learn, and do it all over again. It creates this amazing rhythm of constant progress and adaptation.
So there you have it. You've got the tools now, the systems view to see the big picture, the organizational frames to understand the politics and culture, and modern playbooks like Scrum to guide the work. But I want to leave you with this thought. These are just maps. They can show you the road, but they can't drive the car. Your ultimate success as a project manager will always come down to how you lead, influence, and navigate the most complex system of all, the human one.